Hey guys, here today to talk about director Yasujirō. He is just one of the most brilliant, genius, forward-thinking directors, Japanese directors who spun out of the 1920s and just made some of the most timelessly human films ever made. I mean, he's made so many classics. I believe literally over 20, 25 that are considered great films. I still need to see a lot. But I just really want to cover my absolute favorites because they've left such a timeless mark. Like, I'm never going to forget the way these particular films made me feel. The 8 I'm going to mention here. And this film's just really humane. And he has one of my all-time favorite actor-director collaborations, which is Setsuko Hara. I believe that those two just have a chemistry and a bond that works so graceful and effortless that just so captivated by her character and how she brings out like sad beauty in every moment frame. It's so beautiful and sad at the same time. The way her and a lot the way his Ozu films will make you feel in general. But to get into his films, we have in 1949, Late Spring. He kicks off. He made a lot of films before this, but he kicks off with a masterpiece that is my favorite of his entire filmography because I relate so deeply to nearly every frame of this film. Truthfully, this is kind of what it is to be someone who's in your 20s and everyone around is going off, getting married, doing their own thing. You are just not looking for that. It's something else entirely. So you're not going to go by society. I'm not trying to be like I'm not like that, anti-society. It's just my personal journey just has not called for me yet to find a significant other or just have an intense motive or purpose to go out and really move somewhere to do something that I wouldn't do different. I feel like I'm called for something of my own entirely. I believe Setsuko Hara's character is very similar in this film. She's just living in this very, very complicated scenario. It's just bringing your individuality to another person very quickly. There's a real fear and anxiety living in that because I feel like I've always had the feeling that people are doing it just for the sake of saying they have a deep relationship. But I always feel like once you get there, I have intense fears of just like disconnection. Like that's always been so loud and harsh to me that it's very difficult to have an intense desire to connect intensely with others in the first place. I've always been a fan of just kind of doing my thing, and the people that I'm meant to gravitate will kind of naturally come and kind of hit it off from there. That's just the way it has to go. I'm just going to keep doing. I really love how this film actually really motivates that. Kind of just what it is to kind of get too much societal pressure. I have to go out and do this. When she really knows deep down she would have been better off just kind of taking her own path, her own way of beauty. And I've just never seen a better film at portraying what it is to just kind of like gradually fall into this cave that actually makes sense. So I feel like given their circumstances, I would be there too because there is challenges that comes with being on this individual path. But in the end, I just think it's worth it. Right now, I mean, it's completely worth it. It's just really the best performance by Setsuko Hara. I really can't just express enough just how wonderful she is throughout this entire film. There's just, I call it graceful simplicity. That's the best way to describe the way it is. She's just in the moment and she seems very happy, but it's just everyone else around her. She's putting all these kind of unnecessary questions in her head that just slowly get to her and kind of innocence in a lot of ways. It does corrupt a certain innocence to her in the end. That's kind of what I can really relate to. It's just like, I feel like, getting too deep into disconnection, I see a loss of innocence in that. I literally don't want to lose all that because I think, I think still being in tune with that is where a lot of my creative energy is coming from. So it's like I'd rather just have that. And I want to save linking those, kind of deep in-depth connect like dots just very, very carefully. Like we'll link whenever the time is, and if it doesn't happen, that's okay. We'll see what happens in heaven or when the next whatever life has, our spirit's next. So it's all good either way. Watching this piece of it's just very raw and human the entire way through, and it just I think the biggest thing it really makes me think about it in the end is just like there really isn't a need to surround yourself with others who want to dictate your state of happiness. You shouldn't have to feel controlled in any way whenever you're around people that are your friends and your close pals, and it's just like that can ultimately just make you question yourself too much in ways you don't need to be questioning yourself, and it actually kind of harnesses where your smartest qualities are at. So it's like, and that can lead to just something that's very heartbreaking in the end, And I just love Hara so much. She's just, she's very graceful, and this is just, it's just a beautiful film the entire way through. It's great for the soul. And then we got in 1951, Early Summer, and this is just, I love this film. It's just a collection of just beautiful moments with just a very melancholic undertone. And it feels a lot like the feeling of, like late spring kind of continued into something a little more subtle and sad. This is just, man, and Setsuko Hara's in it again, just wrecking on my emotional state in the most graceful, simple way possible. And it's just so astonishing the way she just moves things along so smoothly the entire way through. Like, And I'll say like maybe it's a little more loose than Late Spring. I might like Ozu when he's tight, just a little more like he was in Late Spring. I feel like a very tightly paced and edited film. But this just kind of allows all kind of space to breathe with just everyday interactions going on, which is just about as great, really, because it's still just evoking all kinds of memories and just kind of what people wake up out of each other. And yeah, I love Setsuko Hara in this. She just seems like she's in a more playful, bouncy mood than before, too, with her sadness. And I think that just makes her one of those resonating and interesting characters I've ever seen in a film. It's just like, it's funny. It's also had like a fine line of bleakness and devastation living inside of it also. So that just kind of makes it all the better. I love this film. Then we get to this, oh my God, another masterpiece, 1953 Tokyo Story. And this is one of the most unique masterpieces I've ever seen because, and this is going to sound like the weirdest thought for someone who loves a movie this much, but I feel like for the first hour and a half, a lot of times I watch this and I'm admiring how quietly well made it is and subtle and how shot it is, but I also am slightly questioning why am I experiencing this? And I go through this every time, but it's like I feel like I'm a little removed from everything going on. But then the last like half hour or so happens, and then it's like its impact just completely washes over you like a big tidal wave. It's like an hour and a half of just build up to that, basically, like a post-rock album would do. And then every single bit of it makes sense, and it's instantly one of the greatest films I've ever seen because it just makes you want to cry at how it all catches up. It's about capturing subtle moments that you don't think anything of these when you're in the moment, but then whenever you get to a certain point in your life, it all catches up to you. It just literally hurts how real it becomes to you in so many ways. That's just like a way this ends. It's just maybe the most beautifully emotional work of art I've ever seen. It's really gorgeous. Like it really does kind of capture like a tone of like life is ultimately disappointing, in a lot of ways. And I actually do relate to that extent of cynicism that this film expresses. You kind of go through these things, and there is a lot of nihilism that lives in it. Just like, okay, what was the point of all that? There's always a dead end where it's like I kind of don't really know, and I don't know. So you kind of lose all hope, lose your innocence through moments like that. But I've just never seen a more perfect glimpse of just what quiet desperation, despair looks like within characters, people moving on, and just quiet melancholy, just never, things never being the same again. And you just kind of see everything slips away slowly. And that's kind of what, you pick up on a rewatch. It's just like, you just almost need time for it to be normal because that's innocence, in the end. And sometimes it's so in the moment that you don't even think of it in those terms until you hit a certain point. But yeah, this is just a very eternal film. It lives on forever. It's so beautiful. In 1956, we have Early Spring, and this is interesting because I feel like Ozu just really was getting more and more hopeless with his films as he continued after Tokyo Story. I think this might have struck in a balance that is just ultimately really fascinating to me. It's not quite as emotionally deep or intense to me, but it is just very, very long. It's the longest film he made, and I do think occasionally it's a little too long, but it's still a great film despite those little moments, and it's just really well directed, and it has, I think, a good script that really keeps things moving forward. I think that Ozu was just a very effortless at this point. I think he was just coasting maybe a little bit, just writing on themes he had already made before, and just kind of running on with his kind of outlook at the Tokyo Story. That life is a bit pointless, like all this is kind of silly, but it's beautiful too. It's like really that quiet beauty. You can see that in a lot of like Richard Linklater kind of films too. This is like a very Japanese take on that kind of Linklater formula, like the Reformed trilogies particularly, where it's like it starts to feel meaningless, but it's still beautiful. Then you got in 1958 Equinox Flower, and how does he keep making these kind of great films? It's just he just keeps making these kind of films that are just so emotionally graceful and watchable. I think this is the first one. Yeah, this is the first one he made in color that I've seen. And it's just really he really lands with something interesting and different. Like in a lot of ways, he is kind of rehashing a lot of his previous things. But I think seeing it in colors and just like updated kind of visual style for him. And I think it's wonderful to see this blueprint that he lays out for a lot of emotionally compelling films moving forward. I think he just gets a really natural balance of comedy and drama really smoothly here. But yeah, it's a pretty great one. It's not, like I said, not quite as high as some of the previous mentioned films, but it's still a really great film. And then Good Morning, 1959. This is just a beautiful piece of very lighthearted social commentary. It's just about literally kids are the main characters, and it's just really about how they just kind of have this comedic timing, really, and just kind of going on with the parents. And it just kind of feels like a memory book in a lot of ways, and just kind of laughing as they run around all throughout, just being ridiculous and getting into these kind of absurd situations that are very innocent. But it's just the way it's directed that really makes it stand out. I mean, it's just the symmetry of every shot is just so wonderful. There's all this great lighting, and it just really kind of feels like one of those films that it just kind of is trying to portray what complexity in like the suburban neighborhood looks like in a lot of ways. Where on the surface it seems very like normal, but you look inside and there's like all kinds of like just intensity and brewing going on with the characters, all kinds of rough energy going on. And I think that's what a lot of films moving forward just really do. Like that kind of like the darkness living inside suburbia. A lot of particularly like art like the '90s moving forward get into a lot of that kind of stuff. And this feels like a really groundbreaking moving forward thinking in terms of exploring the film. That like that. And we have in 1960, late autumn. I just can't express enough what a master of simplicity Ozu really is. Like, there's just so many complex layers layering around this. But, I think this one isn't as interested in the drama as much as it is just kind of capturing a sense of lightness and stillness within characters. And you got Setsuko Hara again. She's just the best. And she's just modestly delightful as always here. Golly, he really is a great filmmaker that I think was really honing in on one kind of jolt that I think he just like will do in all kinds of different shades, so it's always original and unique and fresh somehow. I don't get very tired of rewatching his films and just really lost into the way that he captures just simplistic beauty and sadness in his characters. But then we got 1961, one of my favorites, The End of Summer. There's just so much to love about it. I love colorized Ozu. This is just really one of his best. This is probably the best visually looking film of his I've seen, in a lot of ways, because it's just the cast of characters feel very warm and cozy the entire way through, and you got Setsuko Hara again, the best, and just capturing what warmth and sadness is at the same time, and she's just always so good like this in Ozu films. The shots are really just better than ever here. I mean, I really can't express that enough. The atmosphere is just really timeless, and I just love that perfect balance of comedy and drama. Like whenever it's masterfully captured like that, it just really feels rich, and it feels very timeless in the way that it lands and ultimately leaves an impact. It's just a fine example of Ozu at his best. And I love this trip. So I highly recommend checking him out.